What if the most infamous villain in modern history was actually just a mediocre painter? Today, on Forked History, we're asking, what if Adolf Hitler got accepted into art school? Buckle up, this timeline is weird, wonderful, and way less explodey. Let's start with what actually happened. Adolf Hitler was born in 1889 in Austria. From a young age, he dreamed of becoming a great artist. He was obsessed with painting and architecture. His mother, Clara, supported his dreams, but his father, Alois, wanted him to become a civil servant. After his father died, 18-year-old Adolf moved to Vienna in 1907, full of hope. He applied to the prestigious Academy of Fine Arts Vienna. He bought a portfolio of landscapes, buildings, and portraits. The examiners actually said that his drawings showed some talent, especially in architecture, but they rejected him because he had almost no experience drawing the human figure. He applied again in 1908. Same result. Broke and devastated, Hitler stayed in Vienna anyway. He lived in homeless shelters and men's hostels. To survive, he painted hundreds of postcards and watercolors of Viennese landmarks, which he sold on the street. Some of those paintings still exist today. They're not terrible, but they're very ordinary. No soul, critics say. While living in Vienna, Hitler developed many of his hateful ideas. He absorbed extreme German nationalism and anti-Semitism that were floating around the city at the time. He also became a huge fan of opera, especially Wagner. Then World War I broke out. Hitler served as a dispatch runner on the Western Front, was wounded, gassed, and received the Iron Cross. After Germany's defeat in 1918, he was furious. He blamed everyone, especially the Jews and communists. That rage eventually led him into politics, and we all know how that story ends. But what if, in 1907, one professor looked at that portfolio and said, "You know what? Let's give this passionate kid a shot." Welcome to the timeline where Adolf Hitler becomes an art school graduate. In this brighter timeline, Hitler does get accepted into art school. He is still awkward and very intense, but now he's surrounded by fellow art students. He studies painting, maybe even takes those dreaded figure drawing classes, and improves. He still loves grand architecture. Instead of ranting in beer halls, he's sketching utopian city designs, massive neoclassical buildings with way too many columns. Picture him as that one overly serious student who argues about art theory in coffee shops. He graduates around 1912. World War I still happens. He probably still serves because that was huge in Austria, Hungary, and Germany. But without the total humiliation of total failure in human life, he returns less broken. Maybe he channels his anger into art instead of politics. In the 1920s, he moves to Munich, the art capital of Germany. He becomes a moderately successful commercial artist. He paints postcards, does illustrations for books, maybe even designs opera posters. He's actually pretty good at architectural renderings at this time and gets steady work designing fancy building facades. He also still writes, but instead of Mein Kampf, he self-publishes a cranky manifesto called The Degenerate State of Modern Art, basically an angry art school rant against abstract painters like Picasso. It sells a few thousand copies to fellow grumpy traditionalists and then fades into obscurity. Politically, he dabbles, joins some fringe nationalist art circles, but without the perfect storm of charisma, oratory skill honed in failed politics, and national despair, he never rises. He remains a minor Munich eccentric who yells about true German art at gallery openings. Now the big question. What happens to Germany and the rest of the world? Without Hitler, the Nazi Party either stays tiny or never forms the same way. The early 1930s are still chaotic. Hyperinflation, Great Depression, but no single magnetic monster unites the far right. Maybe a more traditional conservative or maybe even a military figure takes power. Germany still rearms somewhat, but no blitzkrieg, no Lebensraum obsession. World War II, as we know it, probably just doesn't happen. Instead, let's picture a very different 20th century. Europe tensions do exist, but they're resolved through messy diplomacy or smaller regional conflicts. The Holocaust never happens. 6 million Jewish lives, millions of others are saved. There's no D-Day, there's no Stalingrad, no Pacific Island hopping at the same insane scale. America, more isolationist. The atomic bomb might still get developed, but maybe it's used as a deterrent instead of on cities. Pop culture? No massive greatest generation myth in the same way. Maybe we get more weird German expressionist films or traditional art movements. What about Hitler himself? By the 1950s, he's probably a grumpy old painter living in the Alps complaining that modern art is degenerate while selling overpriced landscape prints to tourists. He dies probably in the 1960s or 70s, mostly forgotten, except by art history nerds who call him that weird traditionalist guy who hated Cubism. It's also fun to think of some ridiculous cartoon possibilities in this timeline. Hitler might become a successful greeting card designer. His birthday cards? Aggressively patriotic. He might try to start an art school commune that fails spectacularly because he's impossible to work with. In the 1930s, what about a public feud with Salvador Dali? Imagine the mustache off. Impressive. Or, what if he accidentally invents an early form of anime-style propaganda art while trying to make pure German cartoons? The world still does have its problems if this happens. Fascism, communism, colonialism, but without Hitler as the catalyst, the worst horrors of the 20th century are avoided, or at least much smaller. Technology and culture advance differently. Maybe we get to the moon earlier because resources aren't blowing up in global war. History really does turn on small moments. One art school rejection helped create a monster. One acceptance might have kept him as just another cranky failed artist. Of course, this is all speculation. The great man theory has limits, and big forces were at play. But it's wild to think how different our world could be if one guy had just been slightly better at drawing people. What do you think? Would a successful artist Hitler have stayed harmless, or would his ego have found another dark path? Drop your own forked history ideas in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, smash like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more cartoon chaos from history's what ifs. Next time, what if the Library of Alexandria never burned? Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the smallest choices change everything. See you in our next timeline.